Yeah.
Incredible.
Nice to see you, Scotty.
Lovely to see you. I was gonna ask over so I know like some carnivores over the New Year period like to just maybe dabble in having something else. Like I remember even Sean Baker saying like, oh, he likes a slice of pumpkin pie or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah. Yeah.
And do you ever like sort of step outside
No,
the
I haven't for the last 3 years, but I did this year. So I had a little bit of chocolate and I had a croissant. I haven't probably had a croissant in about a decade, like, because I
Yeah,
don't
yeah, wow.
do
I bet
gluten.
it would have tasted amazing.
It was pretty good.
Yeah,
It was pretty good, but my God, I was like, my digestive system basically came to a full shutdown, and
right.
I had a few days of just constipation, basically,
Yeah,
and it just
yeah.
like eating glue, basically. So I
From
did,
the croissant?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The
yeah.
chocolate didn't have an impact other than I felt so hungover. Like the next day,
Hmm.
I felt like, oh my God, it's like I've been on a bank, like a big bender.
So
Um,
you were just feeling what, like groggy, a little bit like out of it, brain fog?
like I felt the physiology of like being hungover. So the tired, the kind of hard to
Mm.
do things, the just a bit like not headachy, but like borderline and like just yeah, I felt rough. Um,
Yeah,
and it's just not worth it. I won't do it next year. I just wanted to see this year because it's been 3 years strict now.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
was like, let's just see. And oh, I had OJ as well. I had some orange juice. So those were
yeah.
my three things that I had.
Mhm.
I have decided this year, 2020, what are we, 2025, that
Mhm.
I'm not going to drink any alcohol. So
That's
I
amazing. Yeah.
don't really drink anyway. I have the odd glass of wine on date night, or I'll have the odd thing here or there, but not really. But I'm actually now fully committing to not doing anything at all for the whole year.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's
I mean,
so interesting just to play with it and like have it's good to have that reference range of how good you can be than having something and seeing what can happen from that. But like New Year's Eve, I had just a single drink of vodka and soda, and that was my first drink in about I think like 8 or 9 months. And within like the first few sips, I just felt weird in my stomach. It started to hit me like I'm such a lightweight. Like I was tiddly after like a couple mouthfuls. I'm like, holy shit! Like I'm ready for bed, you know. But it was interesting to see like even almost instantaneously the results, the symptoms I can have
mm,
results of drinking alcohol. It's like it's a no brainer, and I even had a sip, like literally a sip, like a of wine of a friend's, and that gave me the worst gut pain,
oh,
heartburn,
God.
grogginess for like a good 12 hours afterwards. Like,
Wow.
yeah, it
Oh,
was
yeah.
interesting.
It's so not. Well, it's a neurotoxin, isn't it? But like, we're like, oh no, it's fine. I can drink alcohol. It's like, no.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that like because I've never been a big drinker, but
Mm,
I'm glad to have those. My body has those responses because it's like, ah, it's
so
just
clear.
it's not worth it. I'm just gonna have some beautiful water that makes
I
me feel
know.
amazing.
I know. It's so nice to have that reinforcement actually, because sometimes you need it. And I think people, when they go carnivore as well, they can think that they're missing out on something. I've never really had that mentality that I'm losing out on anything.
No.
I think it was because I ate so well in terms of I was paleo. I didn't do processed foods anyway, so it was just me cutting vegetables, and I didn't eat fruit. So it was like I was already kind of halfway there. But some carnivores really think they're missing out on things, and then when they dabble with these things and they see that response on their bodies, it's such a clear indicator that it's just don't put it in.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
worth.
No matter what your thoughts are telling you, your body tells you, like, dude, this isn't for us. This isn't appropriate for us, you
Yeah.
know? Like, give me food that I need. And like, I had friends and family sort of saying that at Christmas. Like, I had my massive ribeye on the bone, just eating
Mm.
that. And they were like, oh, don't you miss like other foods? And they're all eating a wide range of foods around me, you know, like everything from like potato bake to pasta salad to potato salad. Like everything and trifle, ice cream. And I'm like, I don't crave this whatsoever because no offense, but I don't see that as food. You know,
Yeah, no, I know.
yeah, like eat what
Isn't
you
it
want to
crazy
eat.
that we have to say no offense? I mean, for God's sake, people have such snowflakes about things these days. It's like, God, who cares? Like, the fact of the matter is that isn't food. Like,
Mhm.
and you know, I'm me just saying it shouldn't be insulting to somebody. If they're happy with what they're doing, then just keep doing what you're doing. But you know, most people are in a sick, diseased state, and they don't even know that they're in that state.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's a funny one, but I had some family issues actually, where a family member got quite offended and insulted by the way that I'm choosing to live
Ooh.
my life with my
Yep.
health. And specifically with their child who came to see a movie with my kids. Now, when we go to the movies, we'll make the kids like movie-esque food. So they'll have
Mhm.
chicken nuggets, we'll make them a carnivore pizza, we make them flatbreads and just yummy little, you know, it's nice to have a little munch when you're at the movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, because their child was here, I gave it to them as well, and they loved it. They were like, "Oh my god, this is so yummy!" And I just casually, without thinking, said, "Oh well, yeah, that's what you'd eat all the time if you were my child." Like honestly, Scotty, there was no anything behind it. I just said it, and the backlash I got from that, ridiculous. Like,
Oh.
oh, you know, oh, well, you know, you're telling my child that what I'm not feeding her is healthy and this, that, and the other. And the irony was that the person had actually gone carnivore themselves. So they were actually reaping the benefits of eating meat
Hmm.
and had been doing it for a few months, had lost a ton of weight, had reversed some health issues, but still fed her children these foods. And so when she, you know, said to me, you know, I know what you said to my child type thing. And I was like, well, you know, I didn't mean it anyway. And you eat that way too. So, you know, even you know
What's
that those things are poisonous.
what's the problem? Yeah.
She said, oh, in your opinion. And I was like, well, no, not really in my opinion. Like, you know, sugar is poisonous and at a cellular level it's toxic and, you know, it's not
Mhm.
really an opinion. And
Mhm.
also you're not even eating that stuff yet you're continuing to give that to your child. So we had a bit of a, you know,
Do you reckon that was like the little sort of poke they needed to maybe change up their kids' diet a little bit? Because
highly unlikely, and
Mhm.
hasn't spoken to me in 2 years since.
Oh, okay, wow. Isn't that interesting? Like they're doing it, but what's the difference? But like when you're a kid, this is the time to be giving the best possible food for brain development, for growth, for everything like that, and to also not set yourself up for chronic disease in the future. So
Yeah.
why is it a problem? It's the most important time.
People have this weird idea that it's like child abuse to deprive your children of poison. I don't know. It's really weird, but obviously, with society being what it is, and these processed foods and ultra processed foods and dyes and colorings and sugars and preservatives and all these things are so normalized in the way that we choose to eat as a society, that she feels that that's depriving her child of experiences of having those things because they can't have them with other kids or they can't go to a birthday party and enjoy them, or you know, and in the back of their mind I think they truly believe that it's like everything in moderation, and it's just because I'm personally in a bad way I need to eat this way to reverse my way, but the kids are in a good way so their systems can handle it. Maybe, I don't know, I've never had the opportunity to actually speak with that person about those things to uncover what it really was that
Mm.
created that response,
I
because
feel that would be a good podcast.
uh, I doubt that she would speak to me. So
It's
like,
so wild. Like
people are just so stuck and so brainwashed.
Mhm.
And I was. So I, you know, it's not a judgment, it's just an observation, but people
I
were massively brainwashed.
I get it. I was chronically ill for years, and it took me like a good, I can't remember, like 3, 4, 5 years to actually do strict carnivore. I would dabble with it for like 1 week, maybe 2
Mm,
weeks. And
yeah.
I thought that would be good. 2 weeks, that's all I need,
Yeah.
just eating
That'll
only
heal
meat.
everything, and then I can go back to putting the poisons in.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just the way like we've been, like you said, we've been brainwashed to believe that and really think that all, even though we've got all these foods around us at cafes and supermarkets that are considered normal,
Mm.
but is what is the cause of these chronic disease. Why do we think we should go back to that when that's what got us here in the first place? Like I don't know. I'm just glad that I got to a point where I don't crave any of that stuff anymore, you
It's
know?
exactly it. You hit the nail on the head. It's addiction. We're
Mm,
literally addicted to food. We're addicted
yeah,
to vegetables. We're addicted to fruits. We're addicted to like even the things that we think are healthy, we're addicted to them. And
yeah,
if you can't stop eating something, you're addicted to it. Like, and
yeah.
it was that for me. I did a year heavy meat based and slowly tapered out my vegetables
Mhm.
because I was pregnant as well. And I wanted certain things. And I knew that I wasn't necessarily putting in all the good things because I had now had the knowledge.
Yeah,
So I was like, okay, I know that there's tomatoes are high in oxalates and I shouldn't really be eating them, but I'm going to have a couple of cherry tomatoes. Like I chose those things for about a
mhm,
year and just slowly increased my ratios of fatty meats and meat and fats, and then slowly brought down the last few vegetables that I was eating.
yeah,
If I hadn't done the 90-day strict challenge with Bart Pay in January 2022, that's when I did the full 90-day strict. I'd been a year kind of heavy meat based before that. Even when I did that 90 days, I plan to go back to eating those low oxalate vegetables, a little bit of,
yeah,
iceberg lettuce and little bits of pickles and stuff. And after I did the 90 days, the change that had happened on my physiology and my body recomp and all the things, I was like, I'm never going to eat vegetables. Like it's just,
yeah,
it's a no brainer for me. But I
yeah.
think even me, I was addicted to even those last little bits of plants that I was eating because
Oh,
I
sauerkraut. I loved sauerkraut so much, but it was high histamine and it was destroying me. Same as avocado, high histamine. It was destroying me, but it's
yeah,
good for me, right? It's okay. It's like once I figure this issue out, I'll just go back to it. And I don't know, like it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer if something is causing you issues to cut it out of your diet. And if it's not necessary, which look, these aren't necessary. These
no,
plants, these fruits, vegetables, they're not necessary because here I am 2.5 years in, um, carnivore, eating mostly lion diet, beef, salt,
mm,
water. I've
yeah.
never been healthier in my whole life.
Yay! It's so good, eh? I'm
Yeah.
gonna, so other than giving up alcohol this year, I'm going to do at least two 90-day stints of no coffee. I
Yeah.
don't drink a lot of it either anymore. I just have it kind of maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks if I fancy
Hmm.
it. It's not an addiction. It's just I just like the flavor.
Yeah.
But again, I know it being a plant, it being a seed, and it being, not good for me. So I'm going to do 90 days, but I'll do multiple of them because I think last
Yeah.
year I did about 7 months with no coffee. So I'm going to do like
Yeah.
9 months at least with no coffee this year.
That's such a hard one for me too, and, like, even still, like, I'm not 100% strict in that sense where, like, one day out of the blue, I'll just have a coffee and see how it goes, and it's never a good experience for me, and my body tells me that. I never have a good experience.
Reaction to coffee. It's really interesting.
See, I feel like if you can get away with it, it's yeah, it's good,
Mm.
and why not if you aren't having sort of these, I guess, things flare up, but for me, I was getting perioral dermatitis, and like when you start wearing, like, you've got like all this dermatitis that sits on your face, and it's like, I know this is coffee, but I couldn't stop drinking it. That's when I'm like, wow, this has really got me. Like, I've got a rash on my face that I'm willing to, I want to go away, and I'm trying everything to get rid of it except get rid of the coffee. And then I get rid of the coffee, and a month later it's gone. And I'm like,
Really?
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I am interested to see the other thing I ever occasionally will have is a rooibos, just a naturally decaffeinated tea. And,
Yeah.
the microplastics, not only just the plant toxins, all the microplastics, we're ingesting hundreds of thousands of chemicals and microplastics every tea bag. This tea,
Oh,
I'm just like, oh my God, why am I doing this? So everything is all those little bits that are kind of floating around. I'm just going to clear them all out.
yeah. See, that's one thing we don't even think about, the microplastics and everything. Like, I just put a video up this morning about some PFAs and like non-stick cookware, and how like even just a little bit of a scratch on it will release like millions of particles of microplastics, nanoplastics, but also like you're copying the PFAs, and these
Horrible.
have such a bad effect on our immune system, our endocrine system, mental health. And we could be trying to eat the best we possibly can, but because we're using a Teflon pan that's a bit scratched up, or we heat it to a certain heat, and then all the vapor and the gases and those toxic chemicals we start inhaling, and we're not even thinking about it. And here we are thinking, I'm doing the right thing. I'm cooking up a steak, you know, and I'm doing carnivore, but you're using a non-stick pan, and so then you're copping all this other shit. It's like we're being bombarded by every angle possible.
Yeah, yeah, I know. We are set up to be sick. It's you know, there's no short way of saying it. It's so true. And you know, our kids are even being, you know, it's way supercharged on them because you know, our kids are predominantly carnivore. They'll have the tiniest bit of low oxalate vegetables here and there. For the most part, they don't want them anymore. Like I used to let them have iceberg lettuce or, you know, a bit of avo or a bit of cucumber without the seeds and the skin, like, you know, made it friendlier. But they just started letting those things go. And then I'd have this bloody iceberg lettuce that cost me $12 rotting in the bottom of my fridge because nobody was eating it. And so we just stopped bothering. So it wasn't even that we cut that out for them. They ended up just cutting it out for themselves. They're like, oh no,
Yeah.
and the cheese and the bacon and the egg and all the good things of the burger, and they don't
Yeah.
want the lettuce anymore. So those things kind of naturally went on the wayside. But where they fall down is when they're not at home. You know,
Yeah.
my daughter is doing something called Ocean Athletes, which is where she has sprinting beach sprints and drills. She has paddleboarding on the fiberglass boards out in the sea
Mm.
for 2 hours, 6 days a week. So it's like
Wow.
quite intensive. Yeah. And she's chosen to do this. She's only
That's
just
amazing.
12. I know. She's just loving it. However, at all of those events, all the kids are just eating lollies. Like,
Mm.
and it's real standard for them to have them every single day. Like, if you look at a typical lunchbox of a child, there's no food in it. Like, I look at it and think, oh my God, those poor kids are starving. They're
Yeah.
depleted. There's zero nutrients going on in that lunchbox. It's all
Mhm.
processed, it's all packeted. And
Yeah.
the things that aren't packeted are all processed and carbohydrates and seed oils, and you know, it's so hard because they see everybody around them eating this stuff so commonly. You know, even when we were younger, it was never that common to give people, you would never give a person's child a lolly. You'd always
Yeah.
ask the parent, always. And nowadays they're just flinging them out like it's totally fine. And
Mhm.
it's hard because they see that and that's normalized. And obviously, because kids have a very high flexible you know, metabolic rate and system, and they are quite metabolically healthy children, for a period of time they will regenerate and they'll appear to be getting away with it. And so that,
Yeah.
well, what's wrong? They're eating that and they're healthy, or that person's fine, why can't I have it? And so
Yeah.
it gets tricky when they're not at home. And you know, when my daughters choose to have those things, it's instant reactions. My gets rashes all up her upper arms. They both get distension in their abdomen, so they get bloating and soreness in their tummies. They both get gastrointestinal issues, so they both will have diarrhea. Like,
Yeah.
so, but they still will eat it. And they'll say to
Yeah.
me, Mummy, I've had this, it's flared up my da da da. But then they'll still do it. And I'm just like,
They'll do it.
God, it's so difficult because even adults that have the mental capacity to understand that these foods are not for us or shouldn't be for us are still eating them. And
Yeah.
there's a child who does have the knowledge, but she's still a child. And if, you know, it's so normalized everywhere that people eat this stuff, she struggles with that. It's getting harder as she's gotten older.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
She,
I
yeah, you know, she stands out.
yeah.
She wants to fit in. When you're, you know, when you're 11, 12 and you just want to fit in.
You wanna be a weirdo just eating only meat, you know? Everyone's like, "Oh, it's a meat eating person," you know? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
And
get it. I understand. Yeah.
and she wants to fit in and she wants to be accepted. And so she'll even eat these things to be accepted.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I get it. And like, obviously, we just be as compassionate as we can be, but it's tricky when it's so obvious, not only on her body, but on her mental health. She steps out of herself. She almost disassociates when she eats those foods.
Mhm.
Like, she's so, her personality shifts. She's really moody and grumpy. And she, the other day, she took herself off into her room and had a cry. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. She came and told me afterwards. She said, "Oh, Mum, I just been crying in my room." And I was like, "Oh, why?" And she was, "I don't know." just feel all
Yeah.
over the place. And I was like, babe, that's sugar. It's sugar.
That's
It's
the
sugar.
food. That's the food that you think that you can get away with. And but like you said, even adults are doing this. And I've gone to dinner with friends and they'll eat a big dessert of like, I don't know, a banoffee pie or some ice cream or something and stuff themselves and just be like, oh God, I feel so sick. I
I
just oh
know.
God. And I'm like, why is that the normal? Why is that the
Oh, no.
why do you let it
Why are
get
you
to
doing
that
that
point?
to yourself?
Yeah.
And
But
then
it
they
is.
do it again, and then they'll do it again, and then they do it again.
Yeah, and it just
Oh,
goes to show, like, there's so many pieces to the health puzzle, but it goes to show, like, what hyperpalatable foods can do to us, like how they've been engineered perfectly to make us addicted to them. But I also think something that I've been learning about recently is our light environment. And if we're not getting adequate sun exposure and we're getting inadequate, inappropriate light exposure at night, that's and we're on our phones on these blue lit screens all the time scrolling. It hijacks our dopamine system. It throws it out of whack. Then because our dopamine system is what is it's like a buffer between like impulsivity. And so when your dopamine system's completely wrecked, you're going to reach for things like hyperpalatable foods. You're going to reach for I don't know, like drugs, alcohol, pornography, just to get yourself like that dopamine hit because it's like that's what you're craving. But you wouldn't even think that your light environment is one of the main factors that is doing this. So it's like this perfect cycle that they've created where it's like they've got us to be as we're not dead, we're not healthy, we're just in the middle there, just like at their whim kind of thing.
yeah. It's not the
Mm.
healthcare system, it's the sick care system.
Yeah.
And that is so, so, so apparent because I just had a new client in here this morning and he said that his doctor had given him some medication for high blood pressure. And I said, okay. And he said, I'm not taking it though. I took it for 2 months and then I just stopped taking it because I don't like being on medication. I'm like, yay. But the question was like, what advice and support did he give you to lower your blood pressure? Because I've probably taken over 100 different clients off their blood pressure medication in the last 2 decades, like easily, maybe 200. I don't know. I'd have to go back through all my records, but it's been 100, of people that can come to lower their blood pressure naturally just through food and exercise, and they don't even advise you that. He said,
No.
told me anything, and I was like, did they even tell you why your blood pressure's high or any information about like? And then she's like, no, he just told me to take this tablet. I thought, oh my god, this is the
Mm.
sick care system.
Yeah.
This is what they want. They want us not thriving and they want us not dead because then we can buy all their pharmaceuticals.
Oh, it's insane. I was having dinner with my family a couple months ago, and we just started, as I do, I'm the one that rants at the dinner table like a crazy Alex Jones type character. And we start chatting about because my dad's on statins, and
Oh
then
god.
I was like just telling him all the information I know about statins and all that sort of stuff. And then I hear my mum, she's like, oh, I'm actually on statins too. Then I hear my sister that's 18 months older than me. I'm 34. And she's like, oh, yeah, I've just been put on statins as well. I'm like, wait. So all you guys are on statins, but like, what was the reason? And because we all got the same family doctor. And the reason he said was, oh, because you could be at risk of high cholesterol. And then I'm like, did he talk to you about your maybe HDL to triglyceride ratio? Was he just looking at your LDL? How high was it? Like mine was extremely high last time I checked, but my HDL was high, my triglycerides were low. So it's like that's what's wrong with that. But because there's just a concern, so we're going to put you on Lipitor, and so I
Oh,
can't believe it, and they take the doctor's advice because they think the doctor's has them in their best interest, which you'd hope so, and
mm.
maybe they're just ignorant, or maybe they're getting paid by these pharmaceutical companies.
I do have a strong belief for the most part that it is just ignorance. Like I really do. I don't think that really there's that many people out there that are just going to be bought. I really do
Yeah,
believe, especially if they got into health and into medicine to help people, like I just think that unfortunately, because of the way that doctors are idolized by society, respected, put on a platform in society, that they can be the types of people that are less open to different information coming in, and they might have an ego that isn't open to learning something new. That's what
yeah,
I think, because you know, even for me, highly educated in sports science and health, I did not want to know about oxalates, lectin, phytates, and plant toxins. I didn't want to hear about it because I'd spent 15 plus years getting really good results from people by making them do and eat those things. So I thought, well, I've got their health from this to this. So surely, why are you now telling me that that's wrong? So even
Hmm.
me, I didn't want to believe it. There was definitely ego wrapped up in that. There was definitely 15 years of being paid by humans to give them this information, and that information was wrong.
Yeah.
No, still helped them with their health and get to a different place. I was still wrong, like very wrong. And so the only way that I was able to open my mind was to see with my own eyes. And once I could see someone changing in front of me, I could not deny what my eyes were seeing. And that's what made me look into it. And it wasn't until then that I actually was open to learning about that vegetables weren't good for me. I was so closed off to it. So I think
Mm.
it takes you seeing it's something
Yeah.
to be open, especially when you're highly trained and indoctrinated, let's be
And
honest.
and if you've been in the game as a GP for 40 years,
Yeah.
it's like, you get it. You still got that old school way of thinking. You're very rigid in your beliefs, and look, what you've learned is outdated. Things are constantly changing. Like, you can't deny that carnivore is like, how can you deny that thousands, hundreds of thousands, possibly millions now of people have helped themselves across the world with a meat-based diet when, and they still talk about this sort of, oh, but red meat could cause colorectal cancer, and saturated fat will give you heart disease, and salt, that's going to give you, it's just it's crazy to me that, like, if you can't keep up with it, are you really in this to help people? Or because it's like like you're saying, it's a big ego thing, but you've got to put that to the side, and that is hard sometimes.
Yeah.
But like, if you are really in it to help people, you've got to do what you did, put those beliefs to the side and actually, okay, well, I'm open to listen about this,
Mm. And
let's
some of
learn.
them are like my mum has educated her doctor about statins. They wanted to put her on it.
Amazing.
Sat down and she talked to them all through it, and she sent them all the supporting pieces, and they're like, oh, wow, I didn't even know anything about those things. And I'm like, yeah,
Wow.
go mummy.
Yes.
Yeah, and that doctor was open to it. So you do get some that are like, oh, tell me about your experience, tell me about this and that. And other people, they don't want to hear about it. It's much like what I do, because I work with the nervous system and the brain. And the nervous system is such an elusive thing. So what is the nervous system and blah, 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 and how does it even work? And it's just so elusive that it's not really thought about, considered much. And it's similar to what you were saying before about the light code stuff and how much our hormones are affected by light, blue, different lightings, and how it affects, everything in our body, even our melatonin production for that evening. If we don't get correct light in the morning, is not going to, there's all these pieces to it. It's the same thing. We think it's elusive. We don't really understand it, so we just kind of put it over there. And it's similar with the nervous system, because when I've spoken to my doctor a little bit about what I do, and usually I'm just giving him, stories or anecdotal experiences of clients that I've worked with and the results and things that they've achieved, he was really piqued in his interest, because he was like, hey, you can restore muscle recruitment instantly. What's that about? But
Hmm.
even though I said to him, hey, come in for a session, I'm happy to give you a complimentary session, because this is going to help support your patients, and then you can potentially refer to me. He's never stepped into my office because it's the unknown. He's like, yeah, that sounds interesting, but nothing, with everything that I currently know about human function, that doesn't fit into it. So I'm not going to look into it, and I get that quite a lot. About 2 years ago, I started doing a little bit of Muay Thai. So, you know, Muay Thai boxing and punching and whatever. And I was doing a little bit of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu as well. And it was before did I tell you I had breast implants?
I think so. Last time we chatted, yeah.
I had them removed. So it was before I had my breast implants removed. And so after that, I stopped training and stuff, because in grappling, you're very much, and I just couldn't do that stuff. So it was before I had my breast implants removed. Anyway, I met this champion Muay Thai fighter, right? Multiple world-winning Muay Thai, like he's amazing. Broken spine multiple times, nerve damage down one leg, fusion in his neck, cervical vertebrae, like just tons of issues, right? And I go in, I'm doing some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I just casually said to him, oh, I can fix you, I can help you with your nerve damage, I can fix that for you. And he kind of, I say it very casually because I'm, oh yeah, I can help you with that. And he's like, oh, and then he's like, I'll come in for a session. I'm like, yeah, come in, happy to help you. We can restore function to your leg, no problem. And then it's been 2 years, okay? I haven't seen him. So then just before Christmas, I got contacted by him because he went to have spinal surgery and they botched it.
Oh,
They punctured a hole through his C7 nerve.
oh, hectic.
Yeah, and he lost function of his arm. So what they'd done was, it's literally malpractice. They used 2-year-old MRIs and X-rays. Didn't do a new one before the surgery. Planned to go in anteriorly and posteriorly through the cervical spine. They were going to put a cage in and unfuse one of his discs. And right before the surgery, they just dropped it in on him. Oh, we're going to actually just go in through the front, not through the back. And he was just like, okay, he's already on the table, like, okay, whatever. And when he woke up, he went to reach for a glass of water and he couldn't move his arm.
Oh, wow.
And as he was coming out of the anesthesia and looking around for the nurses, they were all evading him, not looking at him, you know, and they just kept putting him back under. Every time he woke up, they kept putting him back out. And he said he knew, he could feel that something was wrong. When he went to get the water and he couldn't use that arm, and then they knocked him back out. And when they finally brought him out of it and the surgeon came in to see him, I mean, everything read on that surgeon's body. He came in very, you know, and he said, I've done something. I've punctured your hole. There's been a problem because we didn't do updated X-rays and MRIs. There was a lot of bone growth and bone spurs that had come about, and it was a lot messier than what we had thought. And I've punctured a hole through your C7 nerve, and we don't know what the implication is going to be in terms of that. I mean, it is fucking horrific for anybody, right? But imagine being an athlete and your body being literally your vessel of your modality, of your profession, as well as just your life. And so then he contacts me and, hey, Jess, can you help me? And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, why didn't you come and see me 2 years ago? Like, let's see what we can do, because you now have a hole in your nerve. So, you know, it's just like we put so much trust into these specialists, these surgeons, these people that we're meant to believe, because that is how it's set up. And he said he didn't want the surgery. Everything in his body was telling him, and that morning he wanted to run away. Like his wife was like, no, you can't leave the city, because he was just like, everything was telling him don't do it, but he did it because we're told there's no alternative. We're told that this is all that exists. We're told that this is what we have to do to regain strength function of our body, and it's rubbish. So he came in to see me. I talked to him about the nervous system and the brain, how it works, and how we actually move and operate ourselves and all the things. And I had a look at his body and his nerves, and had a look at his arm. And I've got some video of it too, which I'll check with him, I can share. But the first video is him just trying to lift his arm. So he's lying flat on his back on the table, and to bring it towards the center, it's like every effort. And he manages to, and he gets it there, and he's in agony, and like that is his maximal output.
Wow.
His wife's in tears. There's tears coming down the side of his face, and I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, you poor thing. Like, you've gone in, trusted someone, and come out in a way worse state than you went in. So then we tested it, and we did the treatment on it, and at the end of the hour he could do this.
No way. Like, maximal effort, or it was pretty easy? Wow.
It was like full control with ease, and he just sat there and he was swearing. He goes, what the? I think he said something like, piss off. Like, he was just like, what because now his arm can move, and he was just like, what is going on here?
Oh, are you able to share like some of the things that you did to get him to that point?
Yeah,
Or
well, I'll talk you through that.
mm,
And actually, although it may not make sense to you, I will talk
mhm,
you through a little bit about how I work with the brain and the nervous system, how we restore function to an area. But it was instant. He was now able to use that tissue. It was now with ease that he could use that muscle again. And now he can start building back the tissues, because
mm,
obviously he's had atrophy of the muscles by not being able to use them. And so now obviously he's like, oh my God, do my leg, do my hip, do my spine, do my this, fix me, like fix everything. And why don't more people know about this? Why is this not out there? Why, why? And, the long and the short of it that I said to him was, hey, I told you, I said,
mhm,
come and see me 2 years ago. But
yeah.
because we haven't got that background of, it being reputable,
It's
you
the unknown. It could be it's woo woo, whatever they want to call it.
know,
Yeah.
but anything other than pharmaceuticals these days or surgical intervention is woo woo. And
Hmm.
it's just stupid. It
Yeah.
it's just like you said, times have changed. What we can do and what we understand and what we know about human function is so different from what I learned 20 this is my 23rd year in health, so 23 years ago when I started doing my degree in sports science.
Mm,
What I used of that is like not a lot. So you've got to keep searching. And I think if I hadn't been a poorly sick baby born, I never would have found what I do. I never would have found the nervous system and the brain work that I do, because I would have been a happy, healthy person. So why would I be looking? The only reason I found this modality was because I was not healthy in myself, and I was still looking to help myself.
hmm.
And I also believe that there's got to be something better out there than the traditional therapies of physio, chiropractor, and like osteo and all that kind of jazz. And so
Yeah.
I was looking, and that's the only reason that I came across this and then learned it and now specialize in it. But
Yeah,
I,
you almost get pulled towards that, like something else is pulling you away from that. And that was my whole experience with the medical system, where I just one day sitting in the doctor's office, I decided I'm opting out of this and I'm going to figure it out by myself. It sounded ridiculous because I had no medical training, no like science or health background. But here I am. I've done much more for myself than jumping from doctor to specialist and
yeah,
what
I
have you.
think I'm happy.
Yeah, but it's like you've got to
Like,
follow that calling. There's that shining star in the sky that's like saying, "Hey, hey, follow me." And it's like you, even though
trust.
it is the unknown and it's scary and it's hard to trust that. I feel like when you sort of give in to that and follow these synchronicities that the universe might be presenting to you,
Yeah,
it's look. You're at the bottom of the barrel here with your health. Like there's only up from here. Just give it a go. And then you find something like, yeah, like carnivore or light health or nervous system health. And you realize, oh, there's so many pieces to this puzzle that we haven't been educated about. So I think, and we like to give the keys to our health to healthcare practitioners and that, rather than taking responsibility for our health. And I'm not saying you don't go to a doctor or whatever. Do like you do you, and you can work with them, but don't sort of put your head in the sand with your own health. If you need to learn some biochemistry, some biophysics, so you need to learn about the nervous system, how your muscles work, your anatomy, whatever it is, put the time in. Because what are you you're going to be watching Netflix in the evening or whatever you're doing? It's like we can find time if we understand how important it truly is. Yeah.
definitely. Sean Baker put something up the other day that I shared as well. And I was saying that it is a parent's responsibility, and ignorance is not an excuse. Like, it just isn't. Like you said, you need to find out for yourself, find out for your child, because it's your responsibility whether they end up with good health or health issues.
Hmm.
And what you feed them is important. And it is one of the most fundamental things that you can do for a child is feed
Yeah.
them rich nutrition.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And, like stacking that with circadian health, because, obviously our circadian health is pretty much connected to every physiological thing going on in our body, whether that's immune or endocrine system, wound healing, metabolism, digestion, mental health, whatever it is. It's like that is, yeah, it's like there's these pieces that we need to sort of all bring together because you could be on a carnivore diet but you're like smashing steaks at midnight every night or something, but it's like, well, your circadian biology isn't going to be favorable to that. We need to work with our circadian rhythms and that. And it's like, you might be trying to lose weight, but you can't lose weight. But I'm eating only steak. And they said I could eat as much meat as I want. I'm not losing weight. And it's like, well, how's your insulin? How's your leptin? It's all connected to your circadian health as well. But it's something we don't get told.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, who would say that? And God, I had such unhealthy patterns of behaviors when I was younger and when I was a teenager. I was still eating the wrong nutrition as well. So it was like a double whammy from all angles, but I was in a real bad place. And no one had ever spoken to me about, are you getting morning light in your eyes? Are you getting all the essential things that you need during the day? Are you getting the gamma rays? Are you getting all the different, are you signaling to your brain the proper things? In the evening, are you blocking blue light? I mean, are you blocking red light? Are you
Blue
blocking blue
light.
light during red
Yeah.
light classes? Sorry.
Yeah.
And what signals are you then telling your brain and etc. Like we just don't get told about it. And
Hmm.
this is this leads in quite nicely to nervous system, because it is all nervous system. Even lighting is all nervous system.
Yeah.
Digestion is nervous system. Heart, lungs, all of your organs, it's all nervous system and brain. And we're kind of not really told about that. It's kind of like we think that our digestion or our heart or our lungs or our skin or all these different things are not connected, but all of them are a piece of a big operating system, which is the nervous system and the brain. And so, like you said, even if you're eating all the right foods and you're putting in the right nutrients, if your nervous system isn't healthy, then you won't absorb and digest those foods. Right? If your nervous system is not healthy, then you will have problems with your regulating your blood sugar levels, with regulating your hormones, with
Hmm.
healing, with all the different parts of our body. So even if you are doing all of the things right and you have a weak, poorly operating nervous system, you'll still have health issues.
Yeah.
I wasn't told really about that. I didn't really know. I've always looked at everything as quite isolated and different. Like, oh, if I've got a gut issue, it's my gut, or if I've got a skin issue, it's my skin. But we know that skin is gut, and we know these and other interlocked systems. But now I understand that everything is nervous system and brain. And
Yeah.
what that means is, let's say you've got a really strong, healthy, robust nervous system, you could put in the wrong foods and still be healthy and well.
Mhm.
And this is where we get tricked, because we're like, hang on, well, that person's done that for 50 years, and look at them, they're healthy and well. They're in their 90s, they're eating pizza and smoking and drinking, and they live to 110. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people can live healthy or survive and thrive if their nervous system is well, even if they're doing the wrong things. So
Yeah.
me, I was super weak, super poor, super weak, poorly operating nervous system. And so everything affects me really, really badly, because I'm in such a I've always been in such a weak state.
Mm.
And so when I came across the nervous system and the brain work, that was 13 years ago. That's when I came across Neuro Reset Technique, which is what I specialize in. And what I
What
learned,
was that again? Say that again.
Neuro Reset Technique.
Okay. Yeah.
So NRT is the first modality of its kind where we are working with the brain and the nervous system directly to restore motor control, muscle recruitment, to use our bodies, right?
Hmm.
And strengthen your overall nervous system and brain in the
Right.
process. So it is a learning modality where you're literally relearning sense and control of yourself.
Hmm.
And this can be any part of you. This can be down to even organs, like any receptor externally, muscle, joint, fascia, skin, tissue, ligaments, tendons, all of those, and internal structures, digestion, heartbeat, lung capacity, all of it. Or
Wow.
any receptor in your body, we can strengthen and optimize. And that's why it's called reset, because essentially the pathway is weak. And so we
Mm.
reset the pathway or strengthen the pathway, then you have control over that area of your body.
Mm. Wow.
And so when I came across it, I was like, what? Like, I've never heard of any of this stuff. And I'm so highly educated. And I've got, like, I was a leader in my field and I don't know any of this stuff.
Mm.
So it doesn't show that someone's either a good or a bad trainer or a good or a bad health professional with their knowledge, because you can only do with what you know, right? And then when I learned this, I was like, oh my God, this makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way that we work with the brain and the nervous system is by looking at your body's current state of what it knows about itself. All right.
Mm.
So we have three main receptors that give our brain information about our body. Okay. So one of them is a positional sense. So my arm is here. Okay. And that comes from the long sides of the muscle tissues in the muscle spindle. And it will tell your brain that your arm is at this position. Yeah.
Right.
We have another receptor that detects movement changes or velocity, technically. So my arm was here and now it's here. At what rate and change did that tissue shorten, right?
Mm.
And that's found in the short side of the tissues and in the muscle spindle. And then the third thing that we need to know about our body is how much force is required to lift an object, right? And that is found in the tendon, in the Golgi tendon organ. So
Mm.
as the muscle shortens and contracts, we tug on the tendon and it will tell you how much force is required to lift the object. Because you can imagine if I go to pick up a pen and I think it's like a 10 kilo, I'm going to fling it across the room, right?
Okay.
So we need, where am I? Where am I going? And how much do I need, right? And so
Wow.
those three sensory receptors are giving our brain information about our current state. So I'm sitting here, what position am I in, and how much do I need? Okay. Once the information comes in through the receptor, so let's say something's touching my skin, that will send signals via the nervous system into the spinal cord up to the brain to say something's touching my hand. Yeah. Once I've got that information, I can then send a downsending signal from my brain to the tissue to give it instruction. Okay, you're going to contract or you're going to relax. All right, that's literally it. And that's full body globally. It's all data in and then output to control. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about that, because when we walk, we're not thinking left, right, left, right. It's all
It's
non-conscious.
there.
But
It's
we need to
there.
know where our current position is so that we can tell our brain what we need to do from that current position. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so what I do with humans is we can test and see where the weaknesses are in different pathways to different parts of the body.
Mm.
So if you've got a weakness, let's say in your bicep, right, and the muscle isn't able to shorten or contract, right, okay, then as that muscle is shortening, it will get to a point that you can't go any further. And let's say it's there, all right, and that's as far as I can go. There is going to be a lack in some of your sensory receptors or some of the information coming in, because I should have more. I should be able to get my arm pretty much to my shoulder, right?
Yeah.
Already we know that there's a weakness somewhere in one of those receptors. And what we can actually do is hone in and find out what receptor or what pathway is insufficient. Where have we got a lack of sense of ourselves? Because as soon as we've got a lack of sense of ourselves, we've got a lack of control over that area.
Mm.
Okay. And also we can test to see, is it your movement receptors? So not only are they found in the shortened tissues, but they're also in the joint capsule as well. And so we can actually hone in and go, where is the weakness in your brain and your nervous system with you trying to move your arm from here to here? And we can actually hone in and test it, which is
Wow.
super wicked, because
Yeah.
actually find where the weakness exists. And it's going to be different in you than it is in me, and so on and so forth. So the body gives me the answers and it takes away all the guesswork. I'm not thinking, oh, could it be your da-da-da, or, like, I can just test you. And so I love that because it takes away all the guesswork. I can just find out what's going on. So let's say that you have a weakness in, let's say your movement sense is fine. Your brain knows where you're going and has that control, but your positional sense or that shortening sense is inhibited. You don't have control. You'll only be able to shorten to wherever you have sense of that muscle shortening.
Mm-hmm.
So then once we've found the weakness, we use some special little tools. You're going to have a session with me after this online.
I'd love to. I'd love to.
And we can restore function. And what we're doing is giving your brain information specifically about how to do that, how to shorten just those specific tissues, and we can restore control to that area and strengthen the pathway that's sending and receiving the information to that area of your body. Right?
Wow, that's fascinating.
I know, it's so cool. So once we give you that sense of it, then suddenly, what? You've got joint range, you can shorten, and I haven't manipulated, there's no stretching, I'm not jamming on anything. I'm just filling in your sense of yourself at a neuromuscular level. Where am I? Okay, fill in positional sense. I've given you some movement and joint stability. Okay, now try and move your arm, and suddenly you can go to here, you've got full range of motion. We go to get you to load it, so hold that position, don't let me move you. And a second ago they were like this and they've got no strength, and then a second later they're like, oh, and you can't move them, and they're recruiting their tissue when they're strong and they're mobile.
Wow.
Now, the results are instant. I mean, right then.
Yeah. There's no like, oh, just trust me. It's like, oh my God.
I don't have to do, I mean, it's the best because I get super skeptical people come into my world, right? They've done it,
Which is great. That's fantastic. Yeah.
and then I'm like, I get really excited. I'm like, the more skeptical, the better, because I'm going to show you. I don't have to tell you or convince you anything. I'm just going to show you your body and what it's currently capable of. And then now we're going to test it. We're going to find the weaknesses. And we might, even when we find a weakness, I might then do some muscle testing. Like, how much force can you generate from here right now? Nothing. Okay, let's treat it all and then retest. And they're solid. Like, it's insane. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist in the world. And so I get really excitable about my work because I have seen this work on every human I've ever touched in the last 13 years that I've been a specialist in this.
Wow. So even people that have maybe been born with like a certain
Doesn't
issue.
matter what the degeneration, whether it's a severing from, whether it's developmental and they missed a stage, or whatever the lack is, we can fix it or restore function to your body. The only thing that we can't work with is like spasming. So sometimes when people have, when they have the involuntary muscle contractions, we can't help that. However, stroke, we can. Neurological degeneration, we can. Fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, we can. Like, we can. Nerve damage, no troubles. Surgical nerve problems, no problems. Like, there's nothing that we can't help except for bone spurs and involuntary muscle spasms.
Bone spurs?
Bone spurs are basically like bone growth where they come to a point that it looks like a spur, like it's a sharp edge. Because you can imagine that if somebody has bone spurs in their shoulder, the biomechanical structure of that, how that moves, is now going to be different because it's got that's not the right word. It's got a structure now that it's having to move around.
Right.
So if someone comes to me and they look, I need to have surgery on my shoulder. Can you help me? Yes. However, if it's bone spurs that are inhibiting the function of that joint, then you may still have to have the surgery to shave off those growths, so to speak. And then after the surgery, we can restore all the function to the shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'd also treat it before the surgery so that it's in the strongest state possible going into the surgery, but then we'd also treat it afterwards.
Yeah.
So if people have bone spurs, I'm like, you still may need surgery. We'll have to play around with it and see what is required. But pretty much those are the only two things that we can't work with. Other than that, any weakness anywhere in your body, internally or externally, even your organs, even like anything, and restore it and make it strong so that your brain and your nervous system understands the information that's coming in and then can send the down sending signals to control those parts of your body.
I'm gonna have to come see you. I've got a bone disorder in my left knee called osteochondritis dissecans, and I basically had a lack of blood supply go to particular parts of my knee, and the bone pretty much brittled away, and they had to like,
Wow.
screws and plates. I've had like several knee operations on it when I was young. But then my body didn't like that, so they had to take them out and like put like synthetic bone and stuff in there and plug up the holes. And it's been fine for so long, but then recently, because I do a lot of climbing, like indoor climbing,
Yeah.
and I've recently injured it, and it was just sort of like out of the blue, like it's and now it's been causing me so much grief, and I feel like no matter how much I rest it, no matter the stretching, no matter, whatever I'm doing, mobility exercises, there's like there's a problem. And it's sort of just sprung up out of the blue because I don't think I was even climbing. I was walking up to the wall and my knee just tweaked a little bit. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, what was that? And then I climbed for a couple of hours and it felt fine. A few little twinges, but then the next day it just blew up like a balloon and it hasn't been right since. And I'm like, I haven't had issues with my knee since going carnivore, definitely, but for like probably 10 years or so. And so I thought it was like, oh yeah, it's fine. But then out of the blue, it's done this thing because just think, as you've been talking, I was thinking how much not just physical stuff I've got going on with my knee, but emotional stuff because it impacted a lot of me playing sports as a child. So I had a lot of resentment towards my knee, a lot of like like I had to miss out on things because of the knee issues and that as a child, and so it's like there's a lot of emotional stuff attached with that. And I guess with what you're talking about here, you're going to address that whole, you could address that whole thing, like the emotional parts of it, what other possibly affecting other parts of my body, because it is like we were talking about one system. It's not just my knee, this is my body,
I love that you brought that to the light for me because with have you met Professor Bark?
I haven't met him. I follow him on Insta and that sort of stuff. Haven't had the pleasure yet.
So he was, I think I told you in our first chat that he was one of my professors at university.
Yeah.
And I lost contact with him. And then went the way that I came back to finding carnivore was my fiance went carnivore and he had found Bart K and then he kept trying to share his information with me. And I was like, no, vegetables are good for me. I don't want to hear it. And then I finally looked and then was like, oh, I know him.
That's my old professor. What?
So it's so funny going from being his student to now treating him at a
Mm.
physical and
Full
neuromuscular.
circle. Full circle.
But Bart's a scientist. He's very scientifically minded and driven and logically driven, which most men are. And so huge, like didn't understand and didn't also, hadn't come across anything like this. So Bart had his own beliefs about how his body functioned. And obviously, he's a physiologist, so he has a depth of knowledge and understanding. But nervous system and brain in this technique there's 20 of us globally in the whole world that do it. Like it's not,
Wow.
it's so rare. And so when I started treating Bart, we actually started online. So I hadn't even touched him in person. And he had an old shoulder injury, 30-plus-year-old shoulder injury from coming off a motorcycle and smashed his shoulder up. And he'd done everything that he could do over the 30 years to restore function, and him being a physiologist, he's got an upper hand there, and he couldn't fix it. And the muscle had degenerated and worn away and broken down. And he couldn't sleep. He had pillows propped all around it to sleep.
Oh.
He couldn't even move it up here, like at all. And we did 5 sessions virtually, 4 or 5 sessions, did all of the joints, all of the muscles, all of the tissues in his shoulder virtually.
So you're just walking him through what to do? Yeah.
There's a couple of pieces of kit that you need to get to do the treatment, which is very easy and not expensive to buy the tools. It's expensive to work with me, but not expensive for the actual thing. And then I coached him through it, and we restored full strength, full range of motion, and full function to every single joint and every single muscle of his shoulder. And now he can do this, and he can sleep without pillows, and he's building the muscle tissue back, and it's been like life-changing for him.
Yeah, yeah.
So we think that the physical aspect is where we use NRT. But actually, you're right. We use it on mental levels too. The way that I came across this stuff with trauma and how trauma wires itself into the nervous system and the way that it gets logged into our nervous system. I don't know any of that. Nobody taught me that in a degree in sports. So I don't know anything of this. So I learned all about that. December 2 years ago, I started learning about mind. So the mind stuff, because I've been doing body works for, more than a decade.
Mm.
But this started coming about with the brain and the more the mind works and the trauma stuff and how trauma gets wired in and blah, blah, blah. And basically, trauma affects our force output and our control and our sense of an area, right?
Mm.
And so we treated all his somatic sense of self. So the joints, the fascia, the tendons, the muscles, all the physical somatic sense, we restored those pathways so that he could use all of that. Okay. But that's only one side of the coin. The other
Mm.
side of the coin is the mind. All right. If there's trauma in the joint or trauma in the skin or the fascia, etc., in the tissues, then we have something in our brain called an interconnecting neuron. And it will connect itself to the trauma. And then it sends low levels, down sending signals back down to that area. And it will, over time, eventually, it will weaken it again. Even though I've restored all of the strength to all of those pieces, trauma will make it weak again if you don't treat the trauma as well.
Wow.
Wicked. It might take ages. It might take 20 years to degenerate, but
Yeah, still.
treat trauma. And so with Bart, he snapped his Achilles tendon playing cricket.
Oh.
And I treated his ankle, rear foot stability, different muscles and joints in his foot. And he could straight away push up onto his toes, which is insane, right? And so,
Yeah.
He's seeing all this stuff and he's like, oh my God, like, okay, this is insane. And then we were doing some testing on his hamstring and getting him to hold a knee flexed position. And then we've got something called a dynamometer, which is just a little gadget that can measure how much force. Say I'm putting in a contraction and you put it here and you can measure how much force the muscle can generate. And he had like nothing in his hamstrings. His hamstrings were like so poorly operating. Treated all of it. We retested it with the dynamometer and it went up more than 10 kilos of force output that he could generate through that knee, which is mental. And for him to increase his strength that much, that rapidly, but it does. But it does. And so it was really cool because Bart has that kind of mind. We did videos of it. We showed the dynamometer. We've created some more scientific ways of sharing this stuff, but we can literally change your force output, so your strength, your mobility or your joint range, and your control over that tissue, i.e. your motor control, your muscle recruitment to an area instantly, and you get to keep the results.
Yeah. Because that's what I was going to say. Like, do you get a little uptick and then it sort of comes back down? Yeah.
So we've got more than 15 years of clinical research. We say it's long lasting, but it doesn't degenerate unless you lose function over that area. So, for example, let's say your arm could only go to there, and I give you full mobility, control, strength, and sense of yourself in that area, and you're cool. But let's say you only use from there to there, not that you would, but let's say you only did.
Yeah.
And the tissue can degenerate or the pathways can get weak again. But if you're using it, which you will when you use your body, then you don't lose what you've re-given yourself, so to speak.
Wow. Yeah.
So the only 2 occasions that I've seen a degeneration, and this is now 13 years that I've been doing this, it was one time I had one of my guys' retina detached and his whole nervous system shifted. That was crazy. And the second was one of my ladies had a double mastectomy. So she had breast cancer and they cut the whole way around. And so surgically, we had to repair all of, not surgically, but after the surgery, we repaired the surgical nerve damage that they had done. But then she had strength and control over all of her arms and body again. So those have been the only 2 times that I've seen someone lose it. Otherwise, I'll treat something in you And then I might, a year goes past, I'll come back, test that, that's still good, move on to yep, this is still weak. Like it's very cool because the
Wow.
results, you're resetting the pathway.
Yeah.
Way that the information is coming into the receptor, the strength of that pathway's capacity to send that information has changed. We've actually changed your brain and your nervous system. So it's not like, therapies that manipulate or trying to move or realign bones and stuff, because what happens is bones just go back. We're changing signaling the way that the nervous system and the brain recruits muscles and tissues, and then we can change that.
Yeah, and that you can do that online with like the right tools. Like, how is that even a thing? That's so wild.
It's so good. I didn't think that we would be able to go online. Like seeing this and how hands-on it is. And like I told you when we first started, I've just done a treatment on a guy. I'd restored his hamstring function, so his knee flexion. I did both of his hip flexors. He had really good range, so he could get his knee right up here, but like it was like that. He couldn't hold any force.
Yeah.
Very, very weak, and he's got back issues.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay, so we do, and physically moving someone's body into these different positions and treating and restoring these different joint ranges and muscles, it's quite heavy lifting. Like I was a bit like, oh, sweaty, And so when the reason that we learned to do this online was because of stupid world craziness. So the lockdown in
Yeah.
2020, I just started teaching. I started assisted teaching NRT, which is
Oh, wow.
amazing.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
But I taught 2 classes and then we went into lockdown, which meant we weren't allowed to be in contact with one another anymore. And
Mm.
so that was really hard because I've been doing NRT for almost a decade or just 8 years or so when that happened. And I was ready to start teaching practitioners because I'm like, right, there needs to be way more of us. Like I'm at capacity with clients. Everybody else is pretty much at capacity. And Simon Frost, who's the founder, he's a creator of NRT. He's very selective about who he teaches. You have to be referred by a practitioner in NRT to learn it. So if you don't know one of us 20, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
And there's a protocol that he goes through to actually teaching. He doesn't do private mentorships anymore. He used to do, like my fiance was lucky enough to do a private mentorship with him, which meant he had condensed learning, like supercharged, and is now at a specialist level because he's done
Wow.
training.
Yeah.
But even him, he was a PT, he wanted to learn NRT, and Simon was like, just no, he was just kind of sitting there. And then what happened is my fiance started really learning all of the anatomy pieces that support when we do the treatment in his own time. So just
Mm-hmm.
all the origin insertions of all the tissues, like just really intricate parts of the body. He started to study and learn. And I just casually mentioned it to Simon. I said, oh, Ant's learning all the manuals and all the pieces. And he's like, is he? And I said, yeah. And so he got accepted to learn because he was showing the initiative of really wanting to do it. But even
Yeah.
my partner wasn't enough for him to be accepted. Like
Yeah.
he got in through his own merits. It had nothing to do with me. But I've referred 4 people now to be practitioners, and all 4 of them have been trained as NRT practitioners.
Oh, wow.
It's wicked.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's starting to ripple. So I don't know if you've come across Sarah Franklin. She's
That name's familiar.
her handle is in the buff wellness.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
A carnivore nutritionalist. So she's highly trained as a carnivore nutritionalist, and she'd been carnivore for about 5 years before she came across me. And I was doing a guest speaker for the Steak and Butter Gang.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So I was just chatting away about nervous system and function and this and that, and she happened to be on the call. Reached out to me, was like, hey, I've been a carnivore for 5 years, but I still can only eat a fresh cooked piece of steak because of histamines, and I get rosacea and I get heart palpitations and I get, like, she was not in a good way.
Mm.
And she's like, can you help me? Because like I'm eating all the right stuff, but my this is what I'm talking about. even if you're doing all the right things, you can still have a weak, poorly operating nervous system and therefore
Mm.
unhealthy symptoms. And it was all just, it's under this umbrella of nervous system because it might be wildly different symptoms, but it all comes under the same thing, which is
It
nervous system.
goes back to the core of it. Yeah.
So I was like, said to Sarah, yes, I can help you. So she had a hip injury, a hip problem. We fixed that. She had a knee, fixed that. Did her shoulder, fixed that. She'd been seeing chiropractors and having massages for years and never got any relief. And we also treated all different parts of receptors so that she could tolerate all the other types of animal products. So she can eat eggs and chicken and meat and butter and everything now. She doesn't have any
Wow.
food because we've treated all of the weak, because you can have weaknesses in pathways for food.
So how do you get to that? Like, because it's not an arm that you can physically touch. Like, if say if you've got a allergy to eggs or you've got histamine issues and you can't eat, aged meat or jerky or whatever, like where do you even start with that?
There's two pieces. The first piece is you need a stronger, more robust nervous system so that you
Mm,
can deal with the input, i.e., the demand, i.e., the histamine heavy, whatever you're eating, right?
mm.
So, first, you make your capacity bigger, right? So you can deal with it. The second part is you can actually test and see whether or not there are weaknesses in different sensory pieces, i.e., smell,
Mm.
taste, swallowing, like even tracking it through your digestive system, and you can first find out if they're weak, and if those parts are weak you can strengthen them because
Wow.
it's all nerves. Even all of those parts are all nerves. And so
Mm.
we went through with Sarah, and I did body work so she could get a bit more of an understanding about, hey, what am I doing here? Oh, okay, you're restoring. Holy crap, now my leg goes there. What the hell? Or, oh, my shoulder is not sore anymore, and all my tension's gone out of my neck. And there, so I got her like to safety first through nervous system, because that also will increase your capacity, like all over.
Mhm.
Then we went through and we tested specific foods, and we reset all of those foods succinctly in her.
Is that a bit of like a stretch of time? You know how you're saying you have instantaneous sort of
No,
results?
each food we reset in that one moment.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
there's different pieces depending on the weakness and where it is and what's actually weak in it. Um, but yeah, it's pretty succinct. And then we'd leave her for a few days just for her nervous system to get back, and then we'd reset the next food item and then reset the next food, and so on and so forth. Now, you can reset, you can test and see if you're weak with certain foods, and you can also reset those certain foods, but you could also reset foods that we're not meant to eat, i.e., you could reset beetroot, for example, you could reset bread, but I wouldn't. And I've
Yeah.
never ever treated someone other than a carnivore person for food intolerances, because
Yeah.
body's not meant to have that anyway. So I'm not just going to make it okay for your nervous system and your brain. Like,
Mhm.
don't eat those things. I'm happy to treat this side of it. But,
Yeah.
it's funny because the food intolerance is something I don't advertise. I don't tell people it's something I can help with, because
I didn't realize it was a thing. Yeah.
it's not something I want to promote, because I don't want to give you the ability to eat stuff that you shouldn't be eating. However, if you've been carnivore, you've done all the things, then I'm more than happy to help you reset those things, which means Michaela Peterson needs to find me. It means, the people that are still carnivores, being carnivore long standing, it isn't what they're eating, it's their nervous system state and their sensory response to that thing. And we can strengthen that and fix that. So it's not bothering you. And that means now you speak to Sarah, she can eat everything. She couldn't eat pork or ribs or butter or eggs or nothing. She couldn't
Yeah.
eat a steak, keep it in a container and eat it the next day, which for her was so debilitating because you couldn't prep anything. You couldn't take it, all she could eat was a fresh piece of steak. It was,
I've been there. Very frustrating. So what happens just real quickly, say, like with Michaela Peterson, for example, she believes it was chronic inflammatory response syndrome from mold toxicity. What do you think, like in that case where you've been exposed to black mold and you've literally got mold spores living in your bile and stuff like that? What do because obviously you need to get those toxins out of your body. That's just, it's same as if you have heavy metals in your body. Like I've had amalgam fillings taken out years ago, but I had like lead pretty much in my body, and you've got to go through the process to get rid of that.
there's
Yeah.
still there's still detoxification and stuff that needs to happen if things are affecting, like if those things are still existing in your biology. Like, yes, absolutely, you still need to get rid of those things. And that might have been the reason for her onset of those things, but that doesn't mean that she needs to live there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because she feels like she's done everything that she can do to take her health to the level that she can, but there's so much more than what people are aware of,
Yeah.
even me.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning. Every single week, I do a 2-hour lecture with Simon Frost. I treat myself for anything that is coming up. I will get any pieces that I need for clients, or I'll be learning the next piece because it is ever evolving. I will study till the day I die because the stuff is just, I'm learning more and more. And every time I learn a new piece, I can help more people.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And like with, say, for an online session for somebody that's hurt their arm or whatever, how long would a session take for people out there like listening?
So the sessions are only ever an hour.
Mhm.
If you, because you've got to have, how it works is your capacity of your nervous system will dictate how much I can treat in that one session. So somebody with a weak nervous system, we won't be able to restore huge amounts because you'll get to a point that you'll max out in your capacity that we can fix.
Mhm.
So with Bart, we did heaps and heaps of online work first, and then he flew up and he was doing 4 hours of treatment a day, 5 days straight.
Wow.
So, but we built capacity because he wouldn't have been able to do that if he hadn't had done, or we basically built him up so that when he was here, his nervous system had the capacity to deal with all of this treatment that we were doing. So
Mhm.
for someone beginning, it depends, where is your nervous system at right now? What's the health of your nervous system? And then how much can you take? So an hour is usually what we do. I have like the guy that came in this morning's international. So he flew in, we did an hour and a half assessment, and I'm going to do hours this week on his body. But the great thing about being in person is I can test you globally, have a look at all of the different joints, all of the different inputs, come up with a list of all the things that you need. And then there's certain things that are easier to treat on in person and other pieces that are really easy to treat online. So for
Mhm.
him, this guy this morning, we need to do all of his ankle tendons and ligaments. We need to
Mhm.
do all of his SIJ, which is sacroiliac joint in his spine. And we need to do that in person because that's
Yeah.
really hands-on, and it's quite complicated to adduct the subtalar joint and then abduct the mid tarsals, and then like you're holding joint structures, and so
Yeah.
coach that through verbal is tricky.
Yeah.
To do it, Kim was actually treating Bart's ankles, and I was coaching her into positions online.
Wow.
Even then, she can only do so much because
Yeah.
pin the hallux down and extend the interphalangeal joint, that's quite hard. Like,
Like, I don't know what you're saying, speaking gibberish.
yeah, hold this part, this, and extend this. And, like, it's hard for people, but she did a really good job virtually. But, I still needed some parts with hands on his body. So there's certain
Yeah.
parts that we can't do well. That's very tricky to treat. But then there's other parts that are super easy, like to do your ocular system, which is the data that comes into your eyes. Okay.
Mhm.
You've got all this different information coming into your eyes. You've got your color spectrum, you've got focus, you've got convergence, you've got peripheral sense, you've got all these different receptive sense in your eyes. That's really easy to treat online. So I could just coach you through that quite easily. Balance receptors, which is in our inner ears. As we move from side to side, we have these inner ear canals. And as the fluid goes down the canal and saturates the little tiny hairs on the canal, it sends information to our brain about where we're moving in space. We can treat that really easily online. So there's pieces that are easy. And then spine, SIJ, sacroiliac joint, where your pelvis attaches to your spine, is tricky, but it does work. I've done a number of spines in America and Australia, all over the place. Actually, I think we did Sarah's spine online as well.
Wow.
Yeah. But in person, it's way easier. So
Yeah.
everything can be done, and I only learned to do it virtually because of the lockdowns, but it was the best thing second best thing that came out of the lockdowns for me. One was teaching this like virtually, and the second was my daughter because I had my baby in 2020. So
Oh, see, it all happens for a reason.
yeah, my little lockdown baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be done. And if you think of the potential of all the things that we can treat, it's limitless. Like
Mhm.
I had a gentleman flying from Switzerland, and every time he went to tie his shoes, he would just topple over. He'd just follow the direction of whatever he was leaning.
Wow.
All of his vestibular balance dynamics were all out.
Huh.
By the end of the hour, he stood one foot in front of the other with his eyes closed and could fully balance with no instability. And he hasn't had a fall since. And that was about a decade ago.
Wow. That's
And
crazy.
like the implications of this, because any sensory weakness, be that visual, be that auditory, we work on sound as well, place, pitch, frequency of sounds,
So people have like hearing loss?
hearing loss. Also, people get into dysregulated or distressed states
Mhm.
through sound.
Right.
Think of a sharp sound. It can trigger us into defense.
Yeah.
A soothing sound bowl, it can calm our nervous system. So sound, or our auditory system, is literally linked to a vagus nerve, which is actually something we can treat.
Hmm.
So we can treat sound, and that means that you can listen to all different frequencies, resonance, vibration of sound, and not go into defensive states.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we can strengthen all those parts. Vocal cords, we can strengthen your vocal cords. Heart, respiration, organs, digestion, lung capacity, respiratory muscles, all of the muscles of the gluteal system, all of the skin, joints, fascia, tendons, ocular data, visual, balance receptors, trauma, mind work now. Like, it's just like, we can
The
treat
sky's the limit. That's crazy.
it,
Yeah.
really is.
That's
Um,
so fascinating.
yeah.
How did you like we've talked about it, but how did you even stumble upon this? Like what was like the
I was
thing?
I was actually studying because I'm a nerd. I'm such a nerd. I love to soak up anything about human function in the body. I've always been like just weirdly fascinated with it. I was that girl that when I was 10 years old, my mum used to bring me hearts home from the butcher, and I'd sit there and cut them up and look at all the vessels and look at the chambers, and I was just a fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
Uh, and and so I was in London. I was working in a private exclusive gym in West London that had all these celebrities, and I thought I was like Miss, knew we were all like best of the best. I felt like really, really, really good at my job, right? I got paid top in the industry. I was booked back to back, six days a week, 9 sessions a day. Like
Okay.
I was rammed. And I thought I was very, very good at what I was doing. And basically, I was learning something called muscle activation technique, which is a bit more commonly known about MAT, it's called for short. And one of the muscle activation teachers, he was actually a teacher of the teachers, so a teacher of the teachers, had a private clinic in our studio. And the guys who owned the studio had paid him, Simon, to train us just to improve our skill level once a week, right? And he wasn't doing NRT at that point. He was doing it, but he hadn't taught anybody. So
Mhm.
we'd learn about brain and nervous system just, from a more general state. And anyway, me and Simon just hit it off. Like, I'm very organic. What you see here on camera is what you would see if there's no camera. Like, I don't really have, like, it's like, how people have home clothes and then I don't have home clothes either. Like, if I wear
Yeah.
something, I'll wear it in or out of my house. If I
Yeah.
say something, it's going to be in and out of my home. If I'm going to tell my kid off, you're going to hear me tell my kid off in or out of my house. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very much kind of like, I am what you see is what you get type girl. And so anyway, Simon and I just hit it off, got on really, really well. And in my lunch breaks, or if I had time, we started hanging out together. And he'd teach me little bits, or he kind of took me under his wing a little bit in the gym. And it actually caused massive conflict between the owners of the gym and him and me, because they were a bit annoyed that he was giving it to me for free and they're
Right.
paying for it. And so anyway, it caused a bit of a rough. But what ended up coming from that was that Simon invited 10 different practitioners from different like physical modalities to see if he could even teach NRT to another human. Because remember, 13 years ago, it was very different from what it is now. It's so complex. There are 1,600 divisions of tissue from here to here. 1,600, right? And when we first started treating them, you could only restore pieces. We had sub-programs and oh my God, like I thought I'm never going to learn this. Like it's so complex. Back then it took me 10 hours to treat one quad.
Wow.
Right? But I could treat every single part of that quad, every single knee extension, piece and division of your tissues, I could treat. And so people didn't care because they're like, wow, this is amazing. You're doing something that nobody else can do. Now I can do both knee extensions in about half an hour. Like it's so like,
Yeah.
so, what I learned back then was, it's advanced. But anyway, the first group, he invited different practitioners. So physio and God, what was Marcel? I think he's like an osteopath, a doctor, like different physical modality kind of practitioners were invited to learn this technique. And out of the 10 of us, 7 of us went through and studied and learned and sat exams and become qualified in this technique. So it was more that it was just kind of like right place, right time, right person. Because the other boys weren't invited to learn it. Like it was funny. Like it's just one. It's because of my personality and the fact that I genuinely want to help people. Like I don't just be in something in an industry, or even if I was recognized as an expert in my field, I don't give a shit. I actually just want to be able to help people and not be like when I was a trainer, I was a really good trainer. I trained trainers. I was working at this West London Virgin Active. They created a position for me called PTC, Personal Training Coordinator, which literally meant my job was to upskill the trainers. Now, some of these were military SAS bloody special forces trainers and shit. I'm like, 20 something and got this amazing job to up level all these trainers. Like I was already very high in my field, but I couldn't help people. Not really. They wanted to lose weight, that's all right. If you want to put on muscle, that's okay. But if they're injured, I was a bit like, okay, let's change the angle, let's try a cable, let's try different things. And then if I couldn't help them, it was like, okay, go and see a physio or an osteo or a chiropractor or somebody else, because I've maxed out at what I can help you with. And what I kept seeing over and over again was that those people kept coming back with the same problems. Either their problems would get exacerbated and would improve, like go worse, or it would kind of maybe get a little bit better, but take a long time, and then would have to adjust. Like there was just nothing that was helping, and I was a bit like, come on, this is 20th century. Where's the technology? And so I was looking. That's just my way. I was searching for like the future of health, the future of fitness. And then when I got shown this, I was like,
This is it. This is it.
oh my God, I know nothing about nothing. And I was like, first of all, that freaked me out. I was like, shit, I don't know what I'm doing. I actually felt like I don't know what I'm doing now. Like it did actually knock the confidence right out of me. And I was like, oh my God, I used to sit on people's backs when they did push-ups.
Yeah.
In a little bent position, I'd sit here on their shoulder blades up here, and I was inappropriately loading people's joint structures. I was violating ranges of motion. I was doing all sorts of shit, not knowing it, thinking, what a good trainer I am. Like, look at their results and look at their body and look at their but didn't know that actually by loading inappropriately, they might be, looking good now, but they're going to have arthritis.
Down the track.
Yeah. Like you are doing inappropriate things to somebody's body. And so at first it shook me. And then I just went, fuck it, I'm going to throw everything that I have into this.
Yeah.
I threw myself into it. And that's what kept me in London for 13 years is DRT. Because I was only meant to be in London for 1 month.
You just never know what life's got installed for you, which is amazing, that you followed those breadcrumbs,
Or the universe will kick your ass. That's the other thing. I got fired twice in London. Okay, I've never been fired in my life ever, right? And I got fired twice in London. And the first time I got fired, it was when I was working at that studio that I was talking to you about, when I met Simon. And because in my brain, I wasn't aligned with the guys, the company beliefs and the practices of the guys. They lived in a lot of fear, a lot of doubt, a lot of like, whereas I'm very positive. I'm like, yes, we can achieve anything. Let's get it. And
Mhm.
they didn't do things the same way that I did. And it caused conflict and stuff. And
Mhm.
if I just thought, I love my clients, I'm booked solid. I've got 9 hours a day, 6 days a week. I'm just going to do my clients and leave. And I'll just put a wall between it. That was not the right thing to do. And I should have left, but I didn't want to let people down. And I liked my work environment without them. So I was like, I'll just focus on my clients and just ignore them. I ended up getting fired because I wouldn't leave that job. And if
There
I
you go.
hadn't, so if you don't take the nudge, if you don't listen to that deeper intuition telling you, then the lesson will get harder until you listen. So
Yeah.
now if I get a little nudge, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go this way, because it's always more violent if you don't listen, right?
It's a lot easier to go now than fall on your face and then have to pick yourself back up off the ground, dust yourself off. Yeah. Sometimes
Yeah.
we got to like go the hard way many times until we actually learn it though, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
so for me, when I saw this, and it was like night and day, like, I mean, obviously I've had thousands of clients in the last over a decade that I've treated. And the thing is, this works on every single human. So my
Mm.
confidence just grew and grew and grew, because it isn't something that works on one person and doesn't work on another. Every single nervous system and brain, I can help. Like
Yeah.
so when someone goes, oh, I've got tennis elbow, no problem. Oh, I've got a shoulder impingement, I've got rotator cuff tear, I've got torn supraspinatus tendons, no problem. Like, I can
Mhm.
fix everything. And I
Yeah.
get quite cocky because there's not much that I can't help with. And because I've got it's the wisdom. So knowledge is one thing, but experience is what adds to wisdom. So you can have
Mhm.
all the knowledge in the world with none of the experience, you have no wisdom. And so I've got so much wisdom because I've got the knowledge and the experience. And I've seen it over and 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 over again that this
Mhm.
stuff works. It gives me that wisdom to know this. And so now I'm super
Yeah.
confident. I know what I can work with. I know what I can't. I'm very open about what I can't help with. I don't want to like set people up with beliefs about things that I can't help with them with, or con them into anything. That's the last, like, I would never. And so I'm very, very upfront about what I can support with and what I can't, and also how long something will take. So your question before, God, that was a roundabout, but your question before about how many and how long and all those things, until I test your nervous system directly and see where the weaknesses are, I wouldn't know
Yeah.
how many sessions it would take. But for example, Bart's shoulder that we treated in 5 sessions, I think it was 4 or 5 sessions to do every single joint and muscle in his shoulder.
Mhm.
It took, yes, a max of 5 hours. If
Yeah.
you were here in person, it would take me 2.
Yeah. There you go.
Right? So it depends on if you're in person or out of person, and your nervous system capacity. So how much treatment can you handle in 1 hour? Because you will
Yeah.
tap out at some point. So usually most people can handle an hour unless they're like chronically ill. I get chronically sick and ill people in my world because
Mhm.
they've tried everything else. And someone's just said to them, hey, this girl does this thing. I think you should go and see her. And they then take a chance, and then they're like, oh my God,
Mm.
okay, do everything.
Yeah.
You just fix everything. And I'm hoping that in the future there's going to be like a global reset buttons that we can, because at the moment we still have to restore pieces, but
Yeah.
it's developed and developed and developed, and now like it is honestly endless almost with what we can help people achieve things.
That's
Um,
so incredible. And so like to test a nervous system, is that just like a mental thing or is it like a physical thing that you see? Yeah.
listen, so you'll see weakness in the nervous system. It looks like muscle testing. It's not. It's a contraction control test, but it's basically you'll see your system go weak globally when there's
Mm.
weakness in the area. So I'll put an input in specifically to one piece or one receptor, and then you look for the global response. If the global response is a shutdown, you know there's a weakness in that one piece you've just touched, or put
Mhm.
a spotlight on. Think of it like a spotlight. Okay.
Mhm.
And then we can test the next thing, and so on and so forth. So it's a physical thing that you see the weakness in,
Yeah.
but you can also feel down regulation as well. So it's an internal feeling and an external show. So you can see it. Um, those 4 people that I have that are now practitioners. So obviously one of them is my fiance. The other one is Sarah Franklin. So she has now started learning and studying and teaching.
Wow.
She's in Costa Rica now.
Wow.
Yeah, so she has had such a profound experience, me treating all these parts of her, that she's like, I want to share this. This is what I want to give, because I can only do so far with nutrition. And so now she's now a practitioner in NRT and treats certain parts of the nervous system and brain, which is amazing. Because she's blind and now she's a practitioner. And here's another one. Georgia was a PT that I worked with in London. One of my very best friends is now a practitioner. And the other one was also a client. I want to tell you about Una because her story is quite frankly incredible. And she was a woman that was on Facebook, and she asked for a referral or recommendation for a chiropractor. She was on holiday in New Zealand. And I saw her post, and often I'll just kind of jump into people's threads and I'm like, not a chiropractor, but I can help. DM me.
Yeah.
So I'll just like throw it out there occasionally.
Yeah.
Anyway, she messaged me. She said, what is it? How does it work? Oh my God, that's expensive. And then she was like, I'll come in for one session. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Anyway, what we achieved in 1 hour, she's in her 60s. She had a 33-degree scoliosis in her spine. Her spine was fully bent. And they had, medical industry had put her into a spinal cast, like a brace, brace. And they take her out of the cast and they hung weights off her head and her feet and then put her back in the cast. And then they hung weights off her and back in the cast. 4 years of spinal cast stretching, weight hanging.
Wow.
Quite frankly, modern day torture.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And it did nothing to straighten the spine. Yeah. Fast forward, so she had that when she was 20, right? Fast forward, it's been 40 years since she, has suffered her whole life. She's in her 60s. So she's got this big barrel stomach. She's thin arms and legs, but a hard, like almost like a booze belly. You know how men get that hard, rock solid beer bellies? It was like rock solid and protruding. The rest of her was thin. And she was obviously had a bent spine, really severely bent spine, and she couldn't sit up. So she's lying on the table. She couldn't even crunch off the table at all.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Couldn't lift things, couldn't move well, just spinal pain, spinal problems, debilitated. Anyway, this woman walks into my world. I've got no idea about her. She's got no idea about me. And we start transforming her function and her body. And she's like, what on earth is this? She was only meant to be in New Zealand for a couple of months. She extended her trip, stayed for 6 months, did 6 hours of treatment a week, and we threw fucking everything at her. We treated everything in her body.
Yeah.
She's fully straight. She could do 33 unassisted sit-ups. She can lift heavy suitcases. Her stomach is flat, and she is a new fucking human.
That is insane. Yeah.
And so she's actually created a little this is my story experience of NRT online. I'll pop it in the links down below for you guys, where you can read and see her experience. But she had done everything. And even with carnivore, when she sat down with me and I said, darling, we need to change your food. She went, oh, I've done it. I've done it. She lived with the Maasai for a while. Like, she's this incredible woman that's done all these things. She's like a spiritual guru. Like, she's done a lot of stuff. And she's like, no, Jessica. And I'm like, well, we're going to strengthen your nervous system, and then you're going to eat this stuff, and we're going to take out all the other shit that you're doing.
Yeah. Wow.
And then obviously all the nervous system stuff, like I got her to trust me with the nervous system, and then I changed her food. That's what I do. I usually get people to trust me with look what I can do with your body, and now you're going to trust me with your nutrition as well.
Yeah.
But although I share a lot about food, it is not my specialty. It's my side hobby. Food is like a secondary project, because I understand so much about the nervous system and brain affecting everything, that nutrition is just a tiny piece. like you
Well,
said.
it's just one piece of the puzzle. Like I thought carnivore was the be all end all, but then soon to realize, like, wait a second, there's so much here that we've got to look at, and yeah, like nervous system is obviously one of those pieces that.
It's massive, man. And it is the biggest, most fundamental change that you can make to somebody's health and body. You can transform people completely.
Yeah.
For her, it was a huge investment. She threw a ton of money at it.
Mm.
However, she spent 40 plus years of her life in agony, debilitated. So for her, she was like, God, why didn't I find this sooner? I've
Yeah.
wasted my time, energy, money over the years. And yes, it's a drop in the ocean of what she spent to fix her body. But now she
Mm.
gets the rest of her days with health, with function, with mobility, pain free. And now she's learning some parts of the mind stuff that she can now support people with in her avenue of her magic.
Wow.
These mind parts and trauma parts and nervous system parts that she can help with the spiritual side of her world. And now she's a practitioner in certain pieces of NRT.
Oh, wow.
She was like, I want to learn it. And I was like, okay, because you're the
Yeah.
right person. I'm going to refer you. And she got accepted. And so she's done online pieces. She's gone to London to study with Simon. Like it's just so.
That's so incredible. And like you said, like obviously it depends on people's pocket, how much they've got to spend on their health. But for people that have been chronically ill, like myself, you know that, man, that shit's priceless. You would do anything to get your full health back, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. And
Getting people out of wheelchairs. We're talking changing people's function to, like, one of my guys who had cerebral palsy couldn't walk down the hallway without, and that was one of the biggest things that his girlfriend said to me. He just walks straight, like he holds my hand and he's not knocking me over 24/7. He could stand on a ladder on one foot and lift something up into the loft. Like he's never had that function. And
yeah,
every doctor, every specialist, everyone always said to him with cerebral palsy that he could only get what he could ever get. So,
yeah.
right, it does change fucking lives. One of my ladies had fibromyalgia, and it's a non-curable illness, right? It's a non-known about, non-incurable illness with lots of different symptoms that can present. And she was like, can you help me? And I was like, well, probably, but I don't like to guarantee. I'm like, she had chronic migraines so debilitating that she was getting Botox injected into the back of her head and neck every 10 weeks just to manage her migraines.
Oh, wow.
So she came to see, well, virtually, she's in Australia, came to see me. And we started the treatment. She'd just had the 10-week jab and Botox. And the idea was that we treated as much as we can in those 3 months before she was meant to be due for it. And then guess what? Her migraines were gone. No more injecting herself with neurotoxins into her skin.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
literally poison,
Yeah.
gone. So like it is. I had another lady with really bad cluster migraines, so bad she couldn't see, and they had to inject her with an injection. She called me up. This was when I was in London. She's like, Jess, I can't see. They've given me injection. It's not helping. I need help. She got in a cab, came over to my house. We did 2 hour session on her system, walked out with no migraine, hasn't had cluster headache since. She
That's
suffered
it.
from them for her whole life. So like this
Yeah.
is shit that like it is like I do get very passionate about it because I want to help people. I know what my job does, and I just
Mm.
feel really like privileged to have a tool that actually works, that can actually help people
Mm.
get out of chronic health problems.
Oh, well, and no wonder that you're so passionate about your job, because you see people that have been suffering and then you see them when they've come back to life essentially, and I couldn't imagine how rewarding that is for you.
It's like gratification on steroids. Like
Yeah.
I don't need artificials. I get so much because the thing is like even that guy this morning who had no hip flexion, it was literally like this. It was just so poor, so pathetic. To then 10 minutes later being able to hold his leg there, and I'm literally leaning on him with my full body trying to move that leg, and he's
Mm.
got full strength control. And they're just, you see them just like, every time that someone discovers what their body's actually potential is, it's
Mm.
it's just, and I just sit there like, I get to be a part of this. Like,
Yeah, yeah. You
and
can show them. You can
they're
show
like,
them
thank you
this.
so much. And I'm like, no, you
Yeah.
did, like, okay, I did it, but you did it. Like, like it's just the best. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I love my job. I love my work. I don't call it work. It is my passion. And I won't stop doing it. Like one of my girlfriends the other day was saying, I need to create passive income, like, residual passive income. And because, I want to be able to retire. I don't want to retire. I'm going to be doing this till I die because
Yeah.
this is literally whether or not I'm physically treating someone or I'm coaching someone or I'm doing some part of it.
Hmm.
This is something the world needs. Like I am needed by the fucking world. And I want to help
Yeah.
millions of people. I don't have
Yeah.
a small impact. I want to fucking globally help.
That's why we need to get this in front of Michaela Peterson. Then
I
she can talk about it, you know?
And that's the thing, like once you've experienced it, it just blows off what you think you know about human function and movement and stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my
'Cause
God.
like we were talking about at the start, we're not taught about so many of these important things, especially this. It is so specific and so sort of like, I guess VIP, what 20 of yous in the bloody world.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, that's nothing. That is
I know,
nothing.
I know. And
Yeah.
being an infant in the medical industry too, because it's only 15 years old. So that's just an infant, it's just a baby. Simon was developing it and testing it and doing brain scans and all sorts of stuff years before he like actually released it and thought, can I actually teach this to somebody else?
Mm.
And the answer was yes, he could. And now obviously it's developed so much, it's easier to teach certain elements of it, and certain elements you still need quite a lot. And I think I'm quite like, because I've been doing this my 13th year doing it, I I take a lot of what I do for granted because I think I just, I've done it, it's like second nature to me. I've done it for so
Mm.
long. Those 1600 divisions of tissue that I used to think, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to learn. I know now like the back of my brain, like the back of my
Mhm.
hand. It's easy to do. Sarah, obviously, she's had a lot of virtual treatment online. She's gone to London a couple of times for training. But because she hasn't had the same years of experience, she struggles with positions and with testing and with all that, because
Mhm.
that comes with time. And I think I've just done it for so long. I'm a specialist. There's only three
Yeah.
specialists in the world, and I'm one of them. And it
Yeah.
just means so you have practitioners and then you have specialists. And the specialists are the ones that can treat any receptor in your body globally, head to toe. Whereas practitioners can be trained in just certain parts of the nervous system and brain or certain body parts.
Mhm.
Um, there is only a few of us that can do the whole kit and caboodle.
And which is fantastic having the practitioners, because not everybody is in such a chronic, shit state of health. But when they do need to take it up a level, like obviously they can just go and see you.
Yeah, or like, so Sarah will work on vestibular, so balance receptors. She knows how to treat the visual system, the ocular system. She knows bits like that. Whereas other pieces she won't have learned yet. So you only learn things at certain levels. And even me now, Simon will only teach me something as I'm ready to learn it.
Hmm.
Because often he'll give me a piece and that's like 200 hours of study. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
he's just taught me all this new pieces on ligaments. And it's just opened up, oh my God, like so much work for me, but also the capacity to help so many more people.
Sure. Yeah.
Because we've been working with tendons and ligaments for ages, but now we can reset that specific isolated piece, which has its own feedback system. I don't go too much into the science of it, but basically because you can reset the whole upsending and downsending signals, or you can do isolated pieces. It's just opened up this whole new can of worms for me, basically. And
Hmm.
testing it on myself and testing it on my fiance and vice versa, and treating all these pieces, seeing the how this affects. It's like, wow, oh my God,
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah.
Now add that to that and that. And, as I said, I only learned the trauma and the mind start of it 2 years ago. That's like a baby. And there's not many of us, I think there might only even be me and Simon that are doing the trauma and mind stuff, because he hasn't taught other people, because they're not ready. They're not at that level yet.
Yeah.
At that level and you have that base, it's quite easy to learn the new stuff, because it's the same protocol, but it's just different pieces.
Hmm.
And yeah, I feel very grateful that I've learned this. I feel so blessed, honestly.
That's incredible. Yeah, gratitude on TRT for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, you've definitely sold me. I think I need to have a session with you and just, yeah, work out what's going on with this knee.
Yes. So
Mm,
good. Would love
yeah,
that would be so good. And then
yeah,
you actually have an experience of it. So like the knowledge is great, as we said, but it's the wisdom that you want, and that's from the experience. So
that's right. Yeah.
yeah, it is eye-opening, man. Like, yeah, it's quite confronting, especially if you're in, a physical kind of modality, or you have quite a good body awareness of yourself, and then we change a few things and suddenly your body operates completely differently. It's like, what? How did that?
Is this even possible? What?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you yourself often will video just for new clients, put the camera over there and video them on the table because they can feel it, right? So his knee, went to here and now his hip can go all the way there. He can feel the change, but there
Mhm.
ain't nothing like seeing it externally on a camera. And especially the force stuff, like they forget how weak they were at the beginning, and then suddenly they can hold the position and they're like, what? And they can feel it, but again, it doesn't sink in. So I often take video footage for them just so that they can see. Look how,
What happens within an hour?
yeah,
Yeah.
the end of the hour. Um, and I often also advise people to bring a support person. Like I say, bring your husband, bring your wife, bring your whatever, because they can sit and watch, they can absorb more information that I'm talking and treating, and they can see it externally. So that,
Yeah.
it's not just that person going, did that even happen? Is this
Yeah.
real? Because
Yeah.
it's so instant and nothing is instant.
Hmm.
You start to question your own eyes, your own experience of things. So yeah, it's just fucking epic to be able to share this. Like I just so because there will be people out there stuck in a wheelchair. There will be people out there with debilitating problems that they haven't been able to help themselves with, and they think that the only option is surgery, and it ain't the only option. And
Yeah.
actually, in more cases than none, it actually inhibits function and causes more problems than not. Carpal tunnel is a great example of that. I do that many carpal tunnels on people that either have had surgery on one side and it didn't work,
Hmm.
and then I'll fix the other side, and then we'll fix the one that they've also had surgery on because it doesn't work. Like honestly, the reductionist way of thinking that if I just cut the tendon and reattach it over here, I mean, we're so stupid.
Oh my gosh. And we're talked into surgery. We really are. There's a lot of incentives within surgery. There's, like,
We get
and
major money from surgeries, and then the physio after the surgeries, and then like, because that's the thing too, if people have had an operation, a lot of them are like, oh, I need to go to physio, and I'm like, well, there's two parts of physio in my mind. In most people's, it's just conditioning tissues and strengthening tissues, but in my
mm,
mind we have to restore the neurology first,
hmm,
the signaling, so to speak, or the pathway
yeah,
strong so that the muscle can engage and recruit, so that your physio is going to actually, one, be effective and less painful and more faster recovery and repeat all those things. So, like,
yeah,
people like, do I go to this? Do I go to that? And I'm like, as soon as you're out of surgery and you're basically in a position that you can move the limb or the piece around, come to me first.
yeah, yeah,
Save you time, pain, like, and not getting anywhere. Because the thing is, if you have an inability to recruit or engage a tissue, it is because there is a lack or an insufficient sense of it. And
hmm,
repetition isn't going to gain recruitment in the tissues just by doing it over and over again. Such a reductionist way of thinking. Because if
yeah,
that tissue is weak, what's going to happen is other things that are working will compensate to take up the load of you moving your arm. Because muscles don't just do one job, they do multiple jobs. So if
hmm,
something isn't working, something else can take over.
yeah,
Happens over time is that imbalance becomes severe, and one's taking up way too much load and the other one's not working at all, and now it's been pulling on your joint structure, and you've
mm,
got this malalignment issue,
mm,
and it's because one side doesn't have any activity and the other side's got too much, and now you've pulled on it, now you've got a stress point and pain. But why is it there? Because
hmm,
we need more activation or tissue tone, more recruitment in this side of the joint and less in this side. And we can test
yeah.
that instantly.
Yeah, because like I noticed like a lot of limping and that with the left knee, the right hip starts copping it then,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then And then all of a sudden, yeah, then all of a sudden you're out of whack and you can feel that you're developing issues in the right side of your body because you're overcompensating from the left side. Right.
And so we're meant to compensate, but these compensation strategies that are being created by our body are not solving anything.
Yeah.
They might be getting the object off the floor from A to B, but they're not solving anything. I always use the one of the arm because it's so common. If I can't flex my elbow and lift this bag, I'm going to lift or tip to get that thing off the floor.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, my neck and shoulders are tight and sore. And you go to the physio and they're like, oh, yeah. And they look at this area and it's this, that is the problem. And then you
Yeah.
get screwed in and oh, guess what? The shoulder pain goes away.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Shoulder. So it's not always, the pain isn't always presenting in the area where the weakness is.
Yeah. It just goes back to like what we were saying. It's a whole body thing, like I had eczema on my foot, but that doesn't mean it was my foot. It means I had issues with my gut, like it's so funny.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's the same with nervous system. It can be I'm eating all the right things, even the light code stuff. I'm getting
Mhm.
light, I'm getting my gamma rays, I'm getting my evening light, I'm going into blue blocking glasses, I'm off screens an hour before, blah, I'm doing all the things. I'm making sure that my leptin's docking to my hypothalamus, and then I know all the light stuff too. I've gone down that road as well because again, I'm interested in health and I know that it has an impact. And so I look at all the different categories, but even if you're doing all of those things right, and you're grounding, and your circadian cycle is healthy, and you're eating the right foods, if your nervous system is poor and weak, you will still have health problems. And
Yeah.
it's a if, it is when.
Mhm. Yeah.
And if you have let's say you've got back pain, a lot of people have problems at the sacrum or the sacroiliac joint where the spine attaches to the pelvis. If your sacrum doesn't move and counternutate and nutate, it's meant to move your tailbone. I don't know if you know that, but most people
Mm.
are confused.
Mm.
So it should go like that as you come forward in your lumbar flexion, and
Huh.
it should go that way as you come back into counternutation and come back into extension. It should go the opposite way. And
Yeah.
most people's don't move, right? If it's used, guess what? Your trajectory is going to go that way. And you're going to end up bent over in half like those old women that you see like this.
Oh, yeah.
The spine is jammed. And it's not an if, it is only a when. And if we don't solve it, you're going to end up folded in half. And yeah, it might take 40 years to happen, but
Mm.
those 40 years are going to be slowly, incrementally, your trajectory going forward and over, and your head going forward and over, and all
Yeah.
those tissues atrophying that hold you and extend you, and now you're in a world of pain. So
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but like, sure, lifespan's cool, but health span's even better. I want to be healthy at 80, like I don't want to reach 100 and be like decrepit and I can't move. You want to be functional at an old age.
yes. And that's exactly it. It's longevity of health and movement and mobility and function and
Mm.
optimizing joint ranges and being able to just get back to our natural state of childlike, effortless movement where we can
Mm.
just drop into a really low squat. We can just move into places and it be effortless and not thought about. And that's where we work in that,
Mhm.
giving people back that effortless, childlike movement of control over their bodies.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so powerful. Like, yeah, we've got to let's book in. Let's book in.
Unique. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll close it down there. Thank you guys for
Yeah.
being with us and
Two
hanging out.
hours, 2 hours is nothing for us.
Quite honestly, we could chat all day. I will pop the video if I get permission for it with the before and after, and I'll show you now, Scotty, when we get offline,
Mhm.
of the guy who had the nerve puncture and his arm changes literally with,
Yeah.
and then I'll also pop in the links. Una, which was the spinal 33 degrees scoliosis, her little.
Insane. These has been such incredible stories, like absolutely mind blowing.
I love sharing that because
Yeah.
like talking about how it works or the like sending upsending signal, blah, 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 it's way complex. But if you
Mm.
tell people the outcomes and they can see the situation someone was in and then afterwards, that's all they really care about.
That's all you need. That is all you need, no matter how skeptical you are, you've seen it and that's it, okay, it worked. Fantastic. Yeah.
Amazing. Scotty and I will be
Awesome.
back, no doubt. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure you follow Scotty. We'll pop his details below where you can find him as well. And yeah, here's to an epically healthy 2025.
We got this. I'm ready. Let's take it up a level. Thanks so much, Jess. I really appreciate it as always. Yeah.